In this chapter, we learn about the topic of inventory management. This chapter is invited to 4 sessions, and whatever is mentioned and discussed in the videos will be in your final exam. And whatever is not discussed, it means that it will not be covered in your final exam. So we will start with the introduction to inventory management. I would like to start this section by asking this basic question. Does effective supply chain management mean that we should have a minimum level of inventory? Because this is a common question many people have when it comes to inventory management. So if we want to reduce the cost, we should have the minimum level of inventory. However, there are some risks, there are some concerns that it does not let us to have the minimum level, and we should think about an optimum level. So in order to find the answer for this question, I would like to review the definition of inventory management. When it comes to inventory management in a supply chain, we will have a basic definition. The goal of effective supply chain management uh, is to have the correct inventory or the right inventory at the right place at the right time. So as you can see, we have 3 rights. And then what is the goal of that? To minimize system costs while satisfying customer service requirement. So there are 2 goals exactly similar to the goal of supply chain management, which is minimizing the system-wide cost and also making customer happy as much as possible. So 2 goals and 3 ways to achieve to this goal, which is right inventory at the right place and right time. So uh, that's why in inventory management, we are trying to answer 2 basic questions. I will discuss it in next slides, which is how much to order and when to order. So based on this discussion, it is clear that in inventory management, we are trying to answer 2 basic questions. And that's all about inventory management. However, it's not as easy as I mentioned because when it comes to supply chain, there are so many complexities coming to play, and uh, because inventory management decisions have huge and serious impact on the performance of supply chain. That's why that uh, decisions related to inventory will have more attention and more importance compared to other decisions. So in another course, which is procurement and supply management, you will see that companies have something between 50 to 80% of their revenue as inventories in different shapes and types. So if we could manage uh, the inventory and if we could save a little bit of those costs, it will have huge impact on a company's profitability. So that's why these decisions are very important. So let's look at the problem from another perspective. If keeping items as inventory is very complicated and it will be very costly. So why we are keeping inventory in our warehouses? What's the reason that still companies are trying to have some amount of inventory? So that's something we're going to answer in next slide. Okay, why do we hold inventory? The first answer is unexpected changes in customer demand. If for any reason, it could be as optimistic as customers are happy with our product and they want to order more. If we don't have enough inventory, we won't be able to respond properly to the increased demand of customers. Or let's say anything happen, any disruption or any unpredicted thing could happen and customer would like to order more than what we have predicted before. So in this case, if we don't have enough inventory, we won't be able to respond the demand of customers properly. The second reason is economic reasons. So economic reasons, there are so many examples. One of them is economies of scale for transportation. For example, We are buying items in batches, for example, in batches of 12, so a dozen of them. In this case, we don't have any option to reduce the orders because they are coming as batches. So that's one reason. Or when it comes to transportation, in order to save the transportation cost, although you may need, for example, buy 20 boxes, but in order to save the transportation cost and keep the truck load full, so in this case, you may order them as the maximum size of or maximum capacity of a truck. So if the capacity of a truck is 25, so you should order 25 in order to save, although all you need is 20 units or 20 boxes. So that's the second reason. The third reason is to be able to replace the work. So it mostly happens in manufacturing environment. For example, when we hire a new person, a new worker, and the quality of job could be a little bit lower because of learning curve, and people need time in order to make a quality products. So if you don't have enough raw material to replace the defected item, we won't be able to meet our expected demands and meet the customer demand. So in this case, we need to keep a little bit more inventory. Besides that, in retail stores or shops, we also need to keep some extra items just in case that customer wants to return a product and actually change it with another one. So that's another reason that we keep items as inventory. The next reason is availability of product all year round. Uh, we know that the demand for a product could be different in different seasons. For example, in summer, uh, we may purchase less warm clothes and apparels, and in end of fall or early winter, we may buy more. So normally, supply chain managers plan to keep some level of inventory in different seasons in order to manage the demand. So that's why we normally keep extra inventory to manage the extra demand for those products in other seasons. The next reason is to make production smooth. So as you know, some products um, could be manufactured in different stations, and in each station there could be different operations. Some stations work very fast, some stations work a little bit slower. So we need to keep some inventories when the production rate is a little bit slower. And also when it comes to lead time, it's not possible that whenever we are out of products, we order a new one. So that's the reason that we have lead time. It means that the time between we order something to the time that we receive that product in our factory, it will be something between 1 day to maybe 1 month. So if we don't take care of the demand while we have ordered the product, so we might be out of stock and our production could be uh, faced with shortage or the challenges related to that. So that's why we normally keep a little bit more inventory while we have ordered. And the final reason is to hedge against inflation. As you know, the price of products or raw materials or inventories could go higher or lower. So with the case of the price going higher because of inflation, it really makes sense that you buy a little bit more items and store it in your warehouse to manage the increased price in future. At least you will have access to material in the next 1 year in order to manage the production. So these are just some reasons that we keep inventory in our warehouse. After we answered the question that why should we keep inventory in our warehouse, Now I want to introduce different types of inventory. In different textbooks, there are different definitions and classifications. In your reference book, they have four types of inventory. The first type of inventory is called raw material inventory. So this is the first type. You can see different examples. For example, in car manufacturing, metal sheets could be considered as raw material, or plastic material, uh, or any items like chemical products, paints. These are some raw material that we need in order to start manufacturing. Then when manufacturing starts, because we have different production stations, in each station some values are added to the raw material. So by moving into next stations, the value will be increased up to the final products or finished products. So before we get to final products, all the items are considered as work in process inventory, or WIP. These are the items that we keep in order to make the final products. So parts, sub-assemblies, and the spare parts are just some examples of the items as working process. And finally, we have the third type, which is called finished products. So finished products are something that customer is willing to pay for that. And customer normally looks at that as the final product. For example, a finished car. Uh, and this is something that we mostly know it as inventory. And besides all of these three types, we also have a fourth type, which is called maintenance and repair inventory. So, and also in some textbooks, they call it MRO, maintenance, repair, and operation items. These items are the extra items or spare parts or lubricants that we keep in order to keep our machineries working when they are broken, or they need repair or services. So in total, we have four types of inventory. Another classifications of inventory is dividing them into independent and dependent inventory. Independent demand inventory is something like a finished product. So examples are a computer, a bicycle, or a pizza. So a pizza is something that customer is willing to pay for that. A bicycle is something that the customer is willing to pay for that. And when we want to know how many, let's say pizza we want, how many bicycle, how many computer we want, we just need to know and multiply to 1 because this is a finished product. And on the other side, we have dependent inventory. So this is something like parts or some assemblies of a finished product, like the wheels on a bicycle or cheese on pizza. So these are not something that customer is really willing to pay for that. These are something that are ingredients or sub-assemblies or parts of a finished product. So why we divide the items into independent and dependent inventory? Because when it comes to independent demand, all this is all customer is willing to pay for that, and this is something that we actually don't know so much about that, and this is considered as unknown fact. That's why we normally use forecasting for independent demand. On the other side, we have sub-assemblies, parts, and items that are considered as dependent inventory. These items are not something that customer wants that. These are something that we need in manufacturing process in order to make a finished product. And a fact behind the items of dependent demand is that uh, we actually need to know how many of them are used in a finished product. That's why we have some explanatory diagrams or graphs like what you see in this figure, and we call it bill of material or BOM. BOM or bill of material is a pretty common tool used in manufacturing in order to identify how many parts and subassemblies are available in one finished product or in one independent demand. So in this case, by multiplying the numbers that are in brackets, we will be able to know how many of these items is available in finished product. Anyway, we don't want to discuss so much about dependent demand because in order to manage dependent demand, we normally use MRP systems. And in order to manage inventories as independent demand, we normally use inventory models such as basic economic order quantity or discount models, quantity discount models. So this is mostly the focus of this chapter. So from the next slide, we will be mostly focusing on independent demand. After reviewing classifications, we want to start inventory models. So as you remember, we have two basic questions in inventory management. The first question is how much to order. So everything in terms of quantity. So the answer for this question is a number. And the next question is when to order. The answer for this question is a time or is a period which we want to identify in order to order the items. So quantity and time is the unit of the first and second question. Also, you remember that the goal of inventory management is to satisfy customers with at minimum cost. So the next question that we need to answer is, what are the items that are considered as the cost items in inventory management? Dependent on the type of inventory models, we may have different items considered as cost. But basically, we have two main types of cost to be considered for basic inventory management. The first one is ordering cost. It is also considered as setup cost. Setup is coming from the manufacturing concept, and ordering is coming from the finished product concept. And also we have a second type of cost, which is holding cost, or the cost of keeping items in our warehouse, because we need to take care of those items. We need to rent or hire people in order to take care of the items, security, and so many other issues. So in total, we have two items to be considered as total annual cost: ordering cost and also holding cost. So the goal in inventory management is to minimize the total annual cost. There are several inventory systems and inventory models. In this course, we are going to focus on only two of them, which is basic economic order quantity and also quantity discount models. So for the rest of them, such as production order quantity or POQ, the slides are available as PDF and you can use it and read it as if you want to learn more about this topic. However, they will not be covered in your final exam. So from the next video, we will start discussing the assumptions and the ideas behind each of these models, starting from basic economic order quantity.